everybody. Welcome back to the Chip and Griff show. He's Griff. I'm Chip. This is our show. We hope you like it. It's an absolutely beautiful fall day in Athens, Georgia. We're coming to you from our studio. Yes, we have a studio now. We are big time. I'm just saying, we have lights. Hopefully we have some better sound this week. Let's hear from you. If you can hear us a little better, share us on Facebook so we get us a big audience here. We want to talk Georgia football, and when you talk about Georgia football, there is always a lot to talk about. Georgia 5-0, ranked number 2 in the country, sort of rolling downhill, and I wouldn't say they're necessarily chugging. I think they're just sort of rolling downhill right now. Got to get past the Vanderbilt Commodores this weekend, and then finally there'll be that monumental matchup that we've all been looking forward to. Georgia LSU, the Tigers ranked number 5 right now and face Florida this weekend, so we'll see if they can keep that undefeated record. I don't think Mike or I or anybody expected them to be in that situation, but as you can read on our Dog Nation Invasion Baton Rouge series that is now up on dognation.com, there's a lot of Georgia fans heading that way next week. But first things first, Vanderbilt and Georgia in Athens. Mike, let's just get your general thoughts wrapping up what we saw from the Bulldogs in Tennessee last weekend, and then the things that they're trying to check off and get ready as they play host to a Vanderbilt team that beat them last time they were here.
Yeah, it's a good warm-up game. You know, it's one more warm-up game against another mid to lower level SEC team. One more chance for Kirby to work on Georgia and find out what Georgia does particularly well. Now, I'm joking, of course. I mean, Georgia's going to game plan for Vanderbilt, and they take this game as serious as they've taken any other game. But the reality of it is, when you play Vanderbilt, Chip, at home, you've got a larger margin for error than you would on the road at LSU, or probably against Florida, or at Kentucky, for that matter, or the following week against Auburn. So I think this is a game where Georgia needs to iron out a few wrinkles and maybe learn a little bit more about who they are and who they want to be on offense.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by Vanderbilt on a lot of different levels. Number one, they won last time they were here, which is just anytime Vanderbilt wins in Athens, it's sort of shocking. Two, they come in here with a pretty good offense. I mean, you look at Kyle Shermer, is arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the league. What's the receiver's name? He's really good.
They got a couple.
That guy.
Yeah.
Hey, that guy for Vanderbilt, we respect you completely. We just can't remember your name. Mike will find it in his notes here in a minute. But I believe he leads the SEC in receiving. There he is. Elijah Lipscomb,
480 yards and
6 TDs, leads the SEC, and their running back is decent, 360 yards, 5 TDs. Anyway, Vanderbilt usually brings a good offense into Sanford Stadium. It's obviously the defense where there's a lot of concern, and Derek Mason knows how to coach up that defense. They're struggling a little bit this year, but Georgia obviously has to protect the passer better. Gave up 3 sacks again last week against Tennessee, and there's still some questions about that whole first down efficiency on offense, which is putting them behind the sticks, particularly early in the game. You talked to a lot of players this week about slow starts.
Right.
That's something that's a big emphasis in practice this week, is just getting out of the box quicker, right?
Well, it's probably one of the more curious streaks I've ever seen in my career, Chip. I can't think of one that replicates it. But Georgia's first touchdown against these last 3 SEC opponents has come by way of a fumble recovery, either returned or advanced for a touchdown.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
It's pretty incredible, whether it was DeAndre Baker with the return and the drop at the 1, and who was it that recovered it? The linebacker recovered it in the Juwan Taylor.
Juwan Taylor credited with the touchdown.
And Tyson Campbell against Missouri with
fumble
the strip,
return.
64 yards. And then Isaac Nada, after he gets his brains beat out by the pass rush, he's there when the ball gets stripped from Jake and advances it 40 yards for what was officially scored as a 31-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
So, but the point is they had one sustained drive against South Carolina on the road for a touchdown, and that was aided by a 15-yard 30-yard penalty and a 30-yard Mecole Hardman run, so a big chunk play. They didn't have any sustained offensive drives for touchdowns at Missouri, Chip.
Right.
And they had just one against Tennessee, and that came on the 5th series of the game when Justin Fields came out there and started that series at about the Georgia 30-yard line, took it to the Tennessee 31, and then Jake Fromm kind of finished it off. So we haven't really seen a good start from Georgia in the first half of these games. They've been a little sluggish in terms of getting on the board early, and I know Kirby talks about wanting to pound it and wear teams out, but again, we talk about that margin for error. I don't think you can do that on the road at LSU. I don't think you can afford to be that patient.
Yeah, I agree. Jason Standridge here, and we can see your comments. We'll be glad to respond to your comments and questions. Jason Standridge here says DeAndre Baker will shut down that receiver, and he has done a pretty good job of that all year. It's been so fun to work with Griff because he's just showing up on the scene, so he has a fresh look on everything, and he's been duly impressed by DeAndre Baker in the early going. I think a lot of people.
What's he do? The guitar thing after he?
Yeah, that's his new deal. His guitar deal, and there's a lot of little things developing. You had the Savage pads last year on turnovers. Now we've got Richard LeCounte's hit bat, hit stick, which he got to retain after that hit on. He's lucky he didn't get a targeting penalty on
or knock himself out.
Or knock. He fell to the ground later. Kirby said it was some kind of calf thing or something, but I don't think so. I think it was something else. But anyway, not that we don't believe absolutely everything that Kirby has to say. You touched on it just really briefly. We would be remiss if we didn't get into it right away. There's some comments already. We saw the most of Justin Fields we've seen in any game this season, and in fact, toward the end, and Georgia had almost lost in that game, was a very impressive drive to end the game. 7 minutes, 39 seconds, and at one point, I think it might have been 6 consecutive snaps that those guys alternated. I don't know if I liked that. I've never liked, down for down for down. I remember Steve Spurrier doing it years ago when you and I were covering teams in the SEC, and Florida was rolling, going every other. I've never liked that generally, but
they didn't win a championship doing it.
No, they didn't. That's right. And so I don't know. Just let's get your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you guys. I got you right here. Let's hear what you think about the quarterback situation. I'm very impressed with the spurts that we've seen with Justin Fields. Saying that with the knowledge that he's not running the whole show right now. I mean, he's not running the whole offense. He's still coming in and kind of specialty plays. But that said, it's not hard to see the talent in this guy, whether it be his arm, his physicalness, or his running ability. What's your thoughts on Justin Fields?
Well, for one, just to kind of negate some of the divisive nature of the discussion, and I preface this because fans get so upset. I see people attacking each other, calling names, and it just gets out of hand, and that's not healthy for anybody. So first of all, it's in my mind also, this isn't a matter of who's better between Justin Fields and Jake Fromm. It's a matter of which Georgia offense is better.
Yeah.
Now, Kirby said at the beginning of the year in the fall that these guys ran the same offense. Well, Chip, that's just not true at this point.
Not so far, yeah.
When Justin is in there, Georgia is predominantly a run team with RPO action.
Yeah.
And when Jake is out there, they spread it out. They take advantage of his ability to do the pre-snap reads, to change plays at the line of scrimmage. It's a more complex, sophisticated, flexible offense with a coach on the field with Jake, whereas with Justin, it's Georgia is going to initiate the offense. And I look at it like this for basketball fans. It's a point guard versus a scoring guard mentality.
Yeah.
When Jake's back there,
ball distributor versus a point guard.
A lot of things have to go right, Chip, and it's not necessarily Jake Fromm's fault.
Yeah.
We saw Harmon short arm a ball that looked like it was very well thrown.
Oh, yeah.
We saw Terry Godwin come up short on a seam route on another ball that I thought could have been caught.
Right through his hand.
We saw DeAndre Swift drop a screen pass that I think would have gone for at least 30 or 40 yards.
Think about what Fromm's numbers would have looked like had those been completed.
We saw some protection breakdowns.
Yeah.
Now, you put Fields
on. One of our readers in here was talking about pass pro and second level blocking. I'm sorry, I missed your name. It's gone by here. We've got a lot of people on here, and thanks. Was talking about that, just what you're saying. Go ahead, but I was just...
With Fields, there's not quite as many moving parts. Now, I know there's going to be people that will say, well, RPOs can be complicated, and there's a certain read that's got to be made. But there's just, to me, it's more of the offense is running through Justin Fields in terms of what Justin is doing, whether he does it with his big arm.
Yeah.
But when the thing it does is it changes what the defense can do. The defense is not going to be as multiple against Justin Fields. It is not going to pressure against Justin Fields. Chip, they can't afford to. No. Because if you send a run blitz up the wrong lane and Field goes around, he can take it to the house. You saw how vanilla that Tennessee defense got. I mean, Jeremy Pruitt did a great job. You know, whether you like Tennessee or not, they beat up Jake Fromm.
They sacked him. Scheme, man. He knows what he's doing.
Sacked Fromm 3 times, forced 2 fumbles. Fromm's longest pass was 23 yards. That's a heck of a job, because I'm going to tell you, Tennessee's not that good. All right? But Fields came out there, Tennessee went vanilla. The pressure was gone, the blitzes were gone, and they couldn't stop Georgia seemingly when Justin Fields was on. Now, next game, Vanderbilt, I don't know what's going to be better, but against Tennessee, Justin Fields provided a spark, and that's what Kirby said too, Chip.
This is where Kirby's the plan is we have no plan. You know, this is what he means by it. You and I know they have a plan. My goodness, they meet, ad nauseum about the quarterbacks, probably more than any other single issue. I mean, let's face it, that's how important quarterbacks are. But do you? I mean, I'm kind of seeing that Georgia's going to judge how they're doing in pass pro and against pressure, because they're a better team because of all the weapons they have. And think about it, folks. Georgia has a lot of offensive weapons. That's the thing. Justin Fields, that decreases the number of weapons that you're able to deploy.
Right.
But Jake Fromm, you can increase the number of weapons you can employ. So they see, okay, what's the pass pro going to look like today? And then they decide. That number one. Number two, it's not hard to see Justin Fields when he delivers that ball. And, it's impressive. The dude has an elite arm. And when he masters the playbook to a level, maybe not even with Jake Fromm, even maybe approaching Jake Fromm, where he's able to recognize some defense, he's able to check in and out of some things. And Georgia everybody loves the base zone read and RPO. My goodness, if this guy starts to figure that out, I mean, then you might have a quarterback controversy. Then Jake Fromm might not be able to hold him off. But I don't think it's where we are right now.
I don't either, Chip. And right now, I think Jake Fromm in the offense, the Jim Chaney offense, is Plan A, and Fields is kind of the Plan B if this isn't working. And also, I think they will insert Field in some games, even if Plan A is working, because they want to continue to give Justin those opportunities to get the experience.
Yeah.
As hard as they go in practice, and they do go hard.
Yeah.
It's just not the same as game speed. And I think we've seen Justin Fields improve right before our eyes. It's not a bad situation to have 2 great quarterbacks. And I think Kirby Smart is managing this situation really well. And I think Georgia has gotten to the second half of the schedule. It's going to get tougher.
Yeah.
And Justin Fields is a better quarterback than he was at the start of the year. And Jake Fromm should start to get the timing. Say this for Jake Fromm. I feel like we're making excuses for a guy who's got one of the highest efficiency ratings.
Yeah.
He's 17-2 as a starter.
Yeah.
He was 16-22 for 160-some yards.
Yeah.
But they're not.
And as you pointed out, that could have been easily 19 for 22 and more yards.
Well, here's the deal.
Yeah.
Here's why the offense isn't as good. And don't give me the numbers. I know statistically they are, but you can look at the eye test and tell they're not as good. He misses Javon Wims, the go-to receiver. The leading returning receiver was Terry Godwin. He made his first start against Tennessee.
Yeah, and they had some great chemistry.
Terry's only got 4 catches.
Yeah.
And Elijah continues to run hard, and so does Swift with that groin, but they're not Nick Chubb and Sony Michel.
Yeah.
So your skill position players aren't yet performing at the level that they were at the end of last year. Riley Ridley started to do some good things.
Yeah.
He's emerging, but
I love their wide receiver core. It's just they just haven't gotten everything together.
Well, you just wonder if will they put Demetrius Robertson out there? I mean, this guy had over 700. He was a freshman All-American.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a catch this year, Chip.
I can only think he must really be struggling on the blocking aspect, because Kirby's made it clear that that's how important that is, and just the overall read and react aspect of the offense, because otherwise I can't imagine why he's not getting more shots.
Smart guy.
He is a smart guy. He's a very smart guy. And granted, Georgia has some very good receivers. J.J. Holloman's playing great. He deserves more. Tyler Simmons was playing great before he went out with the injury. Looks like he's back this week in the harness. Yeah. I don't know whether he'll play or not. I think it's one of those deals you don't play him if you don't have to, because they're going to need that blocking against LSU, no question. And that's where this entire conversation gets really interesting for me is, you can't take Vanderbilt for granted. It's homecoming. They beat you last time you were here. They've shown they're capable. Derek Mason, every year.
Is this a trap game?
Kind of. I don't know. I don't really see it. I think Georgia's finally gotten to the point where their roster talent is so superior to a team like this that even when you play like crap, sort of like you did. I didn't think they played great against Tennessee. Yeah, they did play great against Tennessee, and then they won by 26 points. Yeah. So this is where we are in Georgia football now. Mm-hmm. And I wrote, on my report card this week, this was so interesting. I don't know what you thought about it, but, the headline I put on there confused some people, angered some people.
It was good.
Especially angered people outside of Georgia, because I said something along the line, Georgia remains the best team in the country not playing its best.
Number 2 ranked.
Point is they're ranked, number 2 ranked Georgia Bulldogs, best team not playing its best. And it's like, well, they are ranked number 2, and I don't think yet. Have we seen anywhere
spurts? Close. Third quarter, Missouri. Third quarter, South Carolina. Second half, Missouri. Georgia has not played a complete football game yet. Now, to be fair, they didn't have to play a complete game against Austin Peay. Austin Peay asked for a running clock in the fourth quarter. Only 10-minute fourth quarter. Middle Tennessee put their backups in and just ran the ball, ran the clock out, even though they were down 49-7. These bye games are what they are.
Yeah.
The good news and the healthy part of that is, and I'm someone that wants to see better games too, but it's real healthy that Georgia's been able to play so many guys.
Yeah.
The bye games have really served a purpose. It keeps a lot of people happy. It keeps the team chemistry going. The bye games have certainly served their purpose for Georgia. They haven't been real entertaining.
Yeah.
I'll just be glad when this game's over, because the Tennessee Invitational is over with.
Yeah.
Do you realize that Georgia started the season with 4 home games against teams all from the state of Tennessee?
Yeah. And I do think, and when you mention that, it's just occurring to me as you talk about it. I think that might be part of the reason that we haven't really seen Georgia rolling yet, because they've had so much substitution. They've had so much. They've done a good job of building.
It hurt Jake Fromm.
Maybe so. Maybe so that he's not out there every down.
Couldn't have more reps
last year. Yeah. Last year you had Jacob Eason waiting in the wings, and he didn't come in until garbage time. This year with Justin Fields, they're working him in early. And I think, again, like you just talked about, I think against Vanderbilt, they'll get him in there just as early as he possibly can.
Maybe Kirby should have put the pedal down.
Kibo Weir here says Kentucky is the trap game, not Vandy, in my opinion. But man, I think Kentucky's got everybody's full attention at this point, don't you?
It's particularly since it's a road game, Chip.
Yeah.
But to his point, to be fair, you've got 2 rivals on either side of that. You got the game in Jacksonville, and you got Auburn looming the next week. So in that sense, that's going to be a tough look. Georgia's coming into a real tough game stretch here. When you look at LSU ranked number 5, Florida, I believe, is in the top 25. We'll see if they stay in the top 25 after this LSU game. But then you got at Kentucky, which is in the top 25, and then you got Auburn, another top 10 team.
Yeah.
So, the odds would say Georgia might lose one of those games.
Yeah, this is the point. So we knew this was going to be the meat of the schedule once they got through it. We couldn't be sure what Missouri and South Carolina were going to look like, but when we left Atlanta this summer, everybody seemed to agree that South Carolina was the number 2 team in the East. I'm not sure if that's the case. I don't know if
they're the number 3 team.
Yeah. And so now in Florida, look, they're a team in progress. They're not a finished product. They're under a new coach. They've got old players. Old players used to doing old things.
They're playing with energy.
Yeah, they look like it. Yeah, they are. And so this will be very intriguing to watch watch LSU. What time is the LSU Florida game?
I think it's I want to say it's an evening game. I'll see.
Is it? We have a night game, so that's going to be interesting to see what we watch.
Maybe it's the 3:30 game. LSU Florida is the 3:30 CBS game.
Okay, good. So we'll be able to watch some of that before Georgia.
How about Missouri and South Carolina? I'll be curious to see that too.
Yeah, we're going to get a lot of answers this week. We talked about this, Griff and I. That's what's so exciting about the first third of the season, because you think you know what you think you know, but you don't really know. So everything's got to work out. Water's always going to find level. And we're getting at that point. I still believe Georgia, by and large, is by far the best East team. As Griff said, you could easily see them stumbling somewhere. That still doesn't mean they're not the best team in the East if that does happen.
Right.
Right now, Missouri and Kentucky are probably battling to be the number 2 team in the East, or Florida, definitely. And I think over the next few weeks, we'll find out which ones those are. Keep your questions coming. Kibo likes James Cook on the jet sweeps. I think everybody likes that for sure. But they might consider, Isaac Nauta talked about that. Maybe he needs a few carries out of the backfield. He looked good on that.
He did.
That fumble return. He said he felt like he was pulling the trailer behind him, but I thought he looked fast.
Another guy that you could say has been underused.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you know who I just realized yesterday when I was watching him in practice, Akil Crumpton. Remember, he was like Mr. Excitement in preseason camp along the lines of James Cook. We haven't seen much of him lately. Nicole Hardman, he didn't score a touchdown?
No, he didn't. He
finally had his touchdowns.
4 catches for 40 yards. Tennessee schemed him. The guy they took out.
And no returns at all.
They took him off the punt return team. I thought that was curious.
That maybe they were trying to save his energy, I guess, or for
get somebody else more involved.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a minute now. Ben Cleveland is still out. Cade Mays, what a story that kid is. Did you know much about Cade Mays last year when you were in Knoxville? Because he's obviously new to me and a lot of the Georgia people. Amazing still that Georgia got him away.
Yeah, he was the cornerstone of the future.
And look what he's doing now. This is, Griff and I have covered football for a long time. That's not a small thing, going from left tackle to right guard, especially in the context of Georgia has so many options on the offensive line, yet Sam Pittman is reasoning that Cade Mays is still their best option. He ends up starting at right guard, and by all accounts had a really good game, really nasty player. You knew about Cade Mays before before he got here. His father was a decent player there.
Kevin Mays was an all-SEC guard under Philip Fulmer.
Wow.
Started on defense and moved over to offense. And Philip Fulmer actually made a house call during the recruitment and couldn't flip. When Tennessee, remember, when they went into the 2017 season, Tennessee had the top recruiting class in the SEC.
That's right.
But then, they lost a couple of games. The fan base turned. The negativity started happening. Injuries. And it just, Cade was, I think, the 4th decommitment in 5 weeks. And really, a lot of people think that was the final, pull of the plug on Butch Jones. You just lost the cornerstone of the future. And Cade Mays, they'd recruited the number 1 player out of the state and in the country the year before, and Trey Smith. This was going to be another top 25 player. But once Mays decommitted, the writing was on the wall. It was over without a doubt for Butch Jones.
Let's get some of our questions here. D. Phillips Choices wants to know when Ben is coming back. He was on crutches during the game.
I don't know. We've talked about that. I know we've heard someone speculated 4 weeks. Chip and I both see a 340-pound guy. It's hard to believe you put a guy that broke a bone in his leg. It's, I don't know. We'll see. I'm not a doctor, but I've heard as short as 4 weeks. Best case scenario, Auburn. But it's one of those. I'll believe it when I see it.
I'm not sure you see him for a while. Like you said, 6'6", 345 pounds, and that's carrying a lot of weight on that bone. And you get him in, and they lean on their. They have to push off so much.
And if Cade Mays continues to play well,
I don't pretend that he's probably playing as good as or better than Ben Cleveland did. I wouldn't think that's possible, but obviously he's good enough to be in the starting rotation. Let's see what else you got here. Steve Rosie, Aronica, I apologize, Aronica, wants to know about the wide receivers, what we think about them. We touched on that a while ago.
I don't think they're as in sync as they were a year ago.
Yeah, probably. Well, that's one of the problems maybe of having 14 wide receivers that you're trying to figure out how to get on the field, because last year was very defined. You had Javon Wims, McCole Hardman, Terry Godwin. Those were your three. They were going most of the time. They would insert Tyler Simmons, Trey Blunt, Jason Stanley on blocking situation. Riley Ridley, for whatever reason, he didn't get into the rotation until the end of the year.
What do you have? Eight of his 14 catches came in the national title game.
That's right. So I think Ridley's playing really, really well. I think overall they have more talent there and certainly more potential. But it's like we're talking about. It's hard to get in sync. We haven't seen Georgia in sync yet.
Chip, here's the stat. I keep up with this because it started out pretty amazing that on 3rd and 9 or longer, Jake Fromm's only converted 1 out of 14 times. On 3rd and 9, he's been sacked 4 times. He's thrown 2 interceptions. He's 2 of 8 passing for 31 yards, 1 conversion in 14 attempts. When Georgia gets into those situations where you've got to convert downfield throws, that's where the problem has come. And again, it's not all on Jake Fromm. I want to be clear on that. This isn't sit here and bash Jake Fromm. Jake Fromm didn't get any worse as a quarterback. He's getting better.
Yeah.
But the timing that you've got to have with those receivers to go throw the ball downfield, beyond the intermediate district when you're throwing 15, 20, 25 yards, whether we're talking about post routes or option routes for the receivers or deep out routes, it takes a lot of timing. And as you said, when Jake's throwing, and not just Jake's throwing, but Justin Fields is throwing, when you got 2 quarterbacks throwing to 14 receivers every day in practice, the timing is not going to be as efficient. Not saying it can't be good, but it won't be as efficient as if you got one guy, throwing to 6 receivers.
Yeah.
There's just more combinations there.
Yeah. Al Clements points out here, O-line is not given Fromm the time he had last season. Different team, and I would agree with that. You alluded to Javon Wims. We talked about Chubb and Michelle. I think Godwin and Wims, between the two of them, caught, because Fromm was actually that was his claim to fame last season, was his 3rd down QBR. His 3rd down QBR was top 5 in the country last year, and that was, I think you're right. I think that was, if we went back and broke it down, I haven't done this, and I don't know it's important that we do it now, but I would say 75% plus of those 3rd down conversions either went to Javon Wims or Terry Godwin.
Sure.
And not to mention, I do remember a couple of times he gave the ball to Chubb or Michelle on a draw, and those guys would turn it into a 17-yard gain or something.
There's been 2 carries on those 14 plays, Swift for 4 and Swift for 9. They didn't convert on either one.
Yeah.
So there, Jim Chaney's trying different stuff. I'm looking at receivers he's targeting. He's targeting different receivers. It's not that, but like I said, 2 interceptions and 4 sacks on 14 3rd and 9 or longer. That's not the kind of results that you need. You've got to be able to make plays back there, and that flips it back to the Justin Fields situation where you say, well, they don't do as much. Well, they're not losing yards, and Fields, I think he's been in 1 3rd and 9 or longer. He stays out of those situations because he is such a productive runner.
Well, I remember, years ago talking to Jim Donnan about it, a man who I really appreciate his offensive mind, and he's always been of the belief that that it's overrated to have the mastery of the offense. You put the ball in the hands of people who have the athletic instincts to make plays in those situations, and you give away a little bit maybe on the mastery of the offense and the options that we discuss.
The genius is in the simplicity sometimes.
That's a great way to put it. What was I was pointing to something here, and I can't remember what it was. What was I going to get? You keep talking. It was
someone said there's one class behind. I do think Georgia's got a lot of talent on this roster, and I did hear from the beginning. Now next year is when they're going to be really good. Listen, I understand that, and I can look on the paper just like y'all can and say, yep, these 5 stars are going to be 1 year older. They got more 5 stars coming in. But Chip, when you're 5-0 in the SEC rolling into October, you've got an opportunity.
Sure.
And you can't necessarily bottle it up. And if this team can find ways to fight and battle, and maybe we sound like a couple of Chicken Littles here.
Yeah.
When they're 5-0 and they just beat Tennessee by 26 points.
Right.
And we're sitting here saying they're not as good as last year's Georgia team. Maybe when push comes to shove, and maybe it'll be in Baton Rouge, maybe it'll be in Jacksonville, maybe it'll be at Kentucky. We'll know, but they haven't trailed in a game this year.
No.
So I think that's not that.
That was kind of the situation last year. I mean, there's where the similarities are.
The Notre Dame game, right?
Yeah, you did have the Notre Dame game. That's right. You did have that test, 20-19. That was the one I was trying to get to. Is Rosie Aronica here says it seems like Fromm is holding the ball a lot longer than he was last year.
Timing and trust of receivers.
And I think he is, and also he's probably being coached that way as well, with Chaney and Coley wanting him to keep his eyes downfield and get through the progressions. He's definitely going through more progressions. Last year, I mean, I think they were protecting him as a freshman and having him get rid of the ball a lot quicker.
Brought something up there, Chip.
Yeah, what? Go ahead.
New quarterback coach. New quarterback coach. You got a different coach, got a different voice in your ear, a guy telling you to look at it a little differently.
Yeah.
And he's not the play caller.
Yeah.
Typically the guy calling the plays is the quarterback coach. I'm not. Yeah. I'm just throwing different variables out there. What's changed for Jake Fromm from last year?
Yeah.
Top 2 receivers, the quarterback's coach. I have a hard time believing that this offensive line isn't protecting as good as last year's. Yeah. I'm not sold on that. I know Jeremy Pruitt felt like he had coverage sacks, and I've seen some Pro Football Focus stuff saying that Georgia's offensive line is in the top 5 in the country.
Yeah, they like him. Yeah, they do. Yeah, no, that's a really good point, and something we talked about in the preseason. I mean, I think when we were doing our questions in the season, that's not a small thing. When you've changed a lot on this offensive staff. Not only is James Coley coaching the quarterbacks now, and Jim Chaney is coaching the tight ends. You don't have Shane Beamer anymore. You change your wide receivers coach. Cortez Hankton, I think, is doing a great job. I love to watch him during practice. He looks like one of the players. He's so young out there, and I don't know. There's something about his style and everything, the camaraderie. That's a talented group, and he's got a complicated situation on him. But that is never a given. Anytime you make changes, it changes the entire chemistry of everything. Let's flip over to the other side of the ball because we haven't talked about it very much, and maybe special teams a little bit. I think Georgia goes into every game they play with the advantage in special teams, thanks to Rodrigo Blankenship. Unbelievable extra point he makes in that game to keep his point after attempt streak alive, which I think now is at 113. The record is 116, or maybe he's at 116. The record's 121. Anyway, he's in line for Georgia's all-time record on point after attempts. And I think that also Jake Camarda is a work in progress at punter, but
big
leg. And then McCole Hardman, and
when he's out there,
whoever returning kicks, is a definite weapon. Defensively, I'm still trying to figure out this team. I thought they looked better with Monty Rice back in there.
Absolutely.
So that might have made a little bit of a difference at Missouri. I also, and I don't know how much you agree with this, I came out of the Missouri game and the Tennessee game thinking a lot of what we saw on those first down yards allowed against Missouri was a result of scheming to make sure that Drew Lock didn't beat them deep like they did the previous year. And then you come into Tennessee, a mirror image guy, a mirror image football team. Then you were focusing on stopping the run first. Now, you still gave up some yards that you didn't like there on first down, but it was 66 yards total in the run game. We may still go back a little bit. I think on this Vanderbilt team, it looks like they're pass oriented under Kyle Shermer and the wide receiver who shall be named later. I think they throw the ball around a little bit more. I think we'll see him go back to that a little bit. I don't know. What's your thoughts on the defense here as we head into week 6?
Yeah, I thought the defensive front seven stepped up and played the run good. And, the issue with Missouri, from what Kirby said, was that they couldn't stop Missouri in the red zone when they were trying to stop them.
That's the concern,
yeah,
right?
Not that they couldn't stop them at the Missouri 30 or midfield, but when they got into the Georgia red zone, they allowed 4 rushing touchdowns. And that's what put Kirby over the edge and the defensive players when we interviewed him that day. And they weren't happy with their better performance. I'm not sold on the front seven yet being of championship caliber. Again,
you've been pretty consistent on
I
that.
think, and when I say that, people get mad. But look, they're still in the top 20% in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a top 10 defense.
You got to understand we're grading the number 2 team in the country. Kirby talks about the standard all the time, so that's what we're.
Well, it's graded on a championship curve.
Yeah. Exactly.
Is it or is it not a national championship team? And that's what we're trying to evaluate. Is it an SEC East team? Yeah, they roll out of bed every day as the SEC East champs pretty much. Just don't blow it at Kentucky or against Florida. We know Georgia's the superior team. Should win the East without a problem. What we're really talking about is how do they measure up if they're going to play Alabama tomorrow.
Yeah.
And right now, I think tomorrow, Alabama would beat them tomorrow. The good news for Georgia is.
I don't think it would be very close right now.
You don't think it'd be close? I think maybe
not right now. Maybe
7 or 10. But the good points is Georgia's evolving, and now you've got this Justin Fields element. Not that he's taken over the offense, but now you've got another option there at quarterback. I think Justin Fields is a better version of Jalen Hurts. That's what I think. And then on defense, you got younger guys that are starting to play more and stepping up. So I think there's still upside for Georgia. There's room for Georgia to continue to evolve and get better. Whereas Alabama kind of came out at full throttle. I don't know how much better Alabama
They hadn't really missed a beat, except, talking about special teams, they're one chink in their armor. I've now noticed they've got 3 missed extra points or something like that. I don't know why Nick Saban can't ever master the kicking game. I know it drives him crazy. I know he doesn't put a big priority from a scholarship standpoint on it, but so that's that's something to think about. You got that, maybe you got that check in that column, and I do buy Kirby's. He loves his little sayings. His saying now is first you got to crawl, then you got to walk, then you got to jog.
Yeah, he said they're not even jogging yet.
Yeah, and they're not even jogging. I buy that though. That's why my headline was that number 2 ranked Georgia Bulldogs, best team not playing its best. I don't think we've seen anywhere close to the potential.
I would agree. I don't think this team has peaked at all, and we're just all wondering what is the peak. And the great thing is they remember November, and that's the momentum.
Yeah.
And what we think right now at Georgia doesn't matter near as much as what we're going to think coming out of that November 10th game against Auburn.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to set the table. Then they got that chippy cut blocking team, which I don't know why you got that on your schedule.
I hate
seeing Georgia Tech. I hate seeing any cut blocking team the week before a league title.
It'll never change that. I had since you've come on and brought this fresh perspective to it, I've had a conversation with Greg McGarity about it, and the Georgia's AD for now anyway, his contract runs out at the end of this academic year, but he's like, nah, that's never going to change. But, because at least I understand you got to play Georgia Tech moving to the front of the season, right?
Because you're going to plan all that. You got to work on it the whole darn off season anyway.
Yeah.
Their offense is.
They probably wouldn't want you to do that.
Listen, I watched Tennessee prepare for these guys. I mean, they were putting 30% of their offseason practice time in for that opener against Georgia Tech. I mean, having a team like that on your schedule every year, it just doesn't make sense. And Chip, there was a time when Georgia Tech was worth that. It isn't worth it. That game gets you nothing. It's not an attractive national game compared with the other rivalry games. Yeah. They're not an opponent that's going to catapult you and raise you up in the rankings. It's a no-win situation for Georgia to even play that game.
Yeah. What's the national perception of Georgia Tech, do you think?
There isn't one.
Yeah.
They're inconsequential.
Yeah.
They don't matter. I mean,
I don't know if he still did, but Kirby talked about last year.
Like Virginia. Virginia? Yeah. Every now and then Virginia's good. Once every 18 years. Do you care about the Virginia Tech game? I don't.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech is the equivalent of Virginia football.
Yeah. The Kirby talked about last year. I remember this when Georgia was playing, getting ready to play Georgia Tech. He says they spend maybe it's 5 minutes a day or something all year working on the Tech.
Think about what you could do with that
stuff.
time.
Yeah. But he does it all year long. We probably should wrap up. Let's get your last questions. I think Georgia's going to handle Vanderbilt. What's the line on this one? I didn't even notice.
I want to say
it was less than 31, wasn't it?
26.5, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, 26.
But, for Vanderbilt seems to always get the brunt of Georgia. Like, in the past, when they've come back to Georgia after upsetting them, Georgia just annihilates them, because now you've got a little bit of motivation on top of your name. I have a feeling this is the week that Georgia maybe puts a lot together. They start to get an identity. I think it's clear now Justin Fields is going to be a part. He's not just going to be a garbage time backup. He's going to be involved in the offense. I think Georgia's going to come to grips with that. Jake Fromm's going to come to grips with that. Maybe the defense grows up a little bit this week. I see him covering that. What do you think? Probably
under the lights. Guys like playing under the lights, and now everybody's on notice. Nobody's job is safe. Whatever Jake Fromm's got in the tank, you're going to see it.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to lose the starting job.
Oh yeah, he may bow up.
Presuming that he starts. Kirby says there's no.
That's
plan.
True. Yeah.
We don't know. He may look at the Vanderbilt defense and say, "Oh, you know what, Larry? I don't know." He leaves it. Kirby leaves it wide open, and I get that because he wants open competition at all the positions.
Yeah.
And there's open competition there, Chip, and it doesn't mean it's over if one guy starts instead of the other. You're going to see these guys working in tandem depending on, who's moving the football team.
That's right. Yeah. If that were to happen, that Justin Fields, and I don't think he or either one believes that's going to happen, at least not this week. But if number one comes trotting out there to start a game in the coming weeks, you could be sure that your the famous Dog Nation in-game update would be up there in no time.
So you tell me I should do a pre-write?
Yeah, go ahead and have that pre-write ready to go, man.
You never know.
That could happen. There's already right now a lot of great stuff up on DogNation.com. He and I are going to leave here. We're going to head right over to the Georgia Football Complex. We'll have more updates the rest of the day. We're starting to generate some LSU copy because we know as much as you're intrigued about Vanderbilt and the homecoming game this weekend, we don't have to do that. Focus on one game time. We're already looking ahead to that LSU game next with the Bayou Bengals, Dog Nation Invasion, Baton Rouge. Man, I hate it if you weren't able to get in there and win a spot on our bus. We're real excited. I'm going to get out there early and be in New Orleans. He's going to be in Baton Rouge, so we're going to have it covered from both ends.
Red Stick.
And Red Stick, Baton Rouge. I love to say that. And I love this trip. We don't get to make it enough here at the University of Georgia. So he's Mike Griffith. He's an all-star reporter. I'm Chip Towers. I'm just out here carrying the water.
He's all things.
And we're glad you hung out with us today. And you can see us here every week around lunchtime on Tuesdays. You can see Griff shows on Monday. You can catch Towers Take, brought to you by Marco's Pizza on Thursday. So for everybody at Dog Nation, we're going to wrap it up here. Thanks for hanging out with us. And we'll see you at Dog Nation. Don't forget to get that app. Bye, y'all.